Boom. Episode 27. We're back. And this one, we're coming back to the land of Oklahoma, the land of red dirt. Because, it's funny starting off this podcast. I was like, well, I'm gonna have a plethora of guests, start with all my friends. And then I realized the name of the podcast, We Are Everywhere. And it's like my first 10 guests are all from Oklahoma. So I had to spread it out. But this is one of my longtime buddies. Did college together, did Phish together, and we used to call him Petey Pop or Dirty Pop, but now we've got to call him Father Pop. He is a brand new daddy. What's going on, Pete?
That's right. That's right. Glad to be here. Yeah, my wife and we brought our first child in May, and it's been definitely life changing, but it's
Uh,
been very enjoyable.
So, how biggest struggle as of this far with being a new father? Is it the loss of sleep? Is it the crying? What is it?
Well, you don't realize that you got another person that's going to be living with you.
Right.
So it's like, they teach you things at the hospital and,
Mhm.
we're new parents, so we don't know anything.
Right.
And then they're like, all right, just take the baby home with you.
It's like, are
Have
you
fun.
coming with us?
And it's like, when you start talking to new parents, they start telling you, they're like, oh, yeah, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's like, nobody tells you that stuff. Like, you got to learn it. And so
Right.
that's one of the things. It's just like, we had to learn a whole new language and learn how babies are. I mean, when I was a kid, they didn't have YouTube. There wasn't, the internet. Things are a lot easier now, but
Right.
there's a big learning curve, and everything just changes, especially when they're really young. Everything's changing very fast. So once you think you got it changes next week, next month.
Ever evolving. But hey, healthy and happy, that's all. Those are the main things that matter.
Exactly.
So that's cool, man. I'm excited. And this is going to be your first not that it not that it matters, not like it's like you're bringing your kid to Phish, but this is going to be your first Phish run coming up as a dad, so I'm sure you'll be doing a lot more checking in than the
Yeah,
previous
yeah.
runs.
Well, I'll tell you, I've always had an Android phone, and I switched to iPhone, so for FaceTime, I mean, you could do the same thing, but it's just not as easy.
Right. And we've been in some group texts for years, and all of the text bubbles have always been green, and now they're all blue because Petey came over to the dark side. I love that, man. Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, I'm not sure when you're listening to this. You could be listening to it today. Well, whenever you're listening to it, it's today. But we're getting ready to go into to the Dix Run, which is next week. Pete and I have been doing the Dix Runs since their conception, really, right?
Let's see, the first year that I went was 2013, and
Oh,
I've
okay.
missed maybe 1 or 2 years since
Yeah,
then.
because I think it started in 2011, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken. Yeah, so basically have done all of them. Um, Pete, let's get into who you are. I know who you are, but everyone listening doesn't know who you are. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you want to share with the Phish community?
So my name's Peter. I mean, I'm from all over. I've lived across the country. I grew up in New Jersey. We moved. I went to high school in Chicago. After high school, I moved to California. Went to college. Transferred from California to Oklahoma. Finished college in Oklahoma, and as the saying goes, got a offer for a job that I couldn't turn down, and that was quite some time ago. I'm an architect here in Oklahoma. I work on commercial projects. I love what I do, and it gives me the freedom to be able to do Phish.
Yeah, you're one. It's so funny because I've always talked about, and certainly things have changed now, like since you're growing your family and everything. But all of these people that you see on like Phish Twitter and things like that who just go to like every single show. And I'm like, what do you do that allows you that freedom and that kind of compensation? We're talking to one right here.
Well, I didn't go to every show. I mean, I had
I
a
know.
few years where I went to a lot of
A
shows.
lot, yeah.
You know, me and a few friends, we did a West Coast leg one year. Actually, Clay, we were at the Gorge together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went the rest down the West Coast. It was something that I had to plan for. It's not
Right.
cheap to do.
Oh, I know.
You
But you
know,
know those people I'm talking about, though, right? Where just like they're at every single show, and it's like, how are
so
you
those
doing
people are
this?
just trust fund people. You know, it's like,
What do they call them? Trustafarians?
yeah, right. Or it's like, we've got friends that we know. It's like they work service industry jobs all through the year, and then they quit their job and go on tour.
Right. Yeah.
And that's cool if that's what you want to do.
Different strokes, man. Oh, dude. And you were mentioning how you have lived all over, and you mentioned Chicago. And I swear I didn't set this up. We did a trip to Chicago together, and I still have this from the Half Acre Brewing Company. We were doing was that the first time that we did the 3 run at Northerly Island?
It was the year it rained, was it?
Yeah. Yeah. We got rained out in the first set.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, and there's some stories from that one. That was the year. So at the time, you weren't living in Chicago. You were living in Oklahoma.
So
But
let's see. I was living in Oklahoma. We were both going to University of Oklahoma, and
mhm,
in the summers I'd go to Chicago. I think that was 2013. So I actually graduated that year, and
mhm.
I moved to Chicago because I planned on getting a big architecture job in Chicago.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you plan for that? Because you still have your family. It was your sister
Mhm.
there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd stay with my sister, and my family still lives out there.
Yeah. And I remember your sister was kind enough. And at that time, I think she had just had a baby,
She
correct?
was pregnant.
She was pregnant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was her first baby, and that was, I mean, he just turned 8, I think.
Isn't
So
that
that was,
crazy? That's bizarre to think about because I can remember that trip like it was yesterday.
mhm.
And she was gracious enough to let 3 or 4 ragtag hippies crash on her in
Oh yeah,
her apartment. But I
she's
remember,
she's gracious about it.
yeah, she was. We were trying so hard to be upstanding citizens. I remember, and maybe you'll remember this too. It was one of the nights, I can't remember which one, but we were taking the public transit, like around the city and to the shows. And we had stopped at Half Acre Brewing and get on the train, and we're headed to, the lot, before the show. And we're kind of cutting it close. Usually we're there like a couple of hours before, but this one we were like, hey, it's 30 minutes till showtime. Let's go. And we get
I think it was night 2, and night 1 it rained out, so they announced it was going to be 3 sets for night 2.
That's right. That's right. And we get off of the train and we start walking to the venue. We're like, we can see it, and our buddy Gunner.
It's quite a walk. Like we got off on the Roosevelt stop, and it was still like a couple of miles from there.
But we're there basically. Like we're not across the city,
No, you're at the
like we
line.
were.
You're at the stop.
Yeah,
You walk to the venue.
yeah. And halfway through our walk, our buddy Gunner is like, dude, I left my wallet at the brewery. It had his ticket, had everything. And he booked it back, and he has no idea the rail system or the bus lines. Like, so he's just kind of like
No,
going off of Google.
here's the part. No, you don't even know this part.
What?
I was like, all right, Gunner, have you had Gunner on this show before?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Gunner. I was like, all right, Gunner, you got to take the red line to the brown line, or you can get on the purple line, and you got to get off on these stops. And he turns to me and he goes, Pete, I'm colorblind. It'll say brown line.
Yeah.
It'll say red line. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, cool.
Dude, but to his credit, being, not knowing any of that and being colorblind and with the time crunch, he made it back to the brewery, got his stuff, and made it in. He only missed one song, if I
Well,
remember correctly.
the subway stopped. He didn't tell the story when he was on here. The subway stopped. There was a fire on the track, and they're like, "All right, everybody, get off of the subway."
It's
And
like, what do I do now?
he calls me. He's like, "Can I walk from here?" And he told me where he was, and I'm like, "No, dude, you cannot walk from there." And he found like two other people, and they hopped in the cab, and they booked it to a cab, and they met us at the venue.
Lucked out, man. That could have been disastrous.
No,
Like,
there
but
was
I
a
could,
fire on the
like,
track.
and at all the times, like, Jesus. But yeah, that was intense. That was pretty funny though, because I remember
It was
being.
maybe my third or fourth show.
Oh, so this was early in.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. And I just
My
remember
first shows were the year before at Alpine Valley.
those were the first ones. So
Mhm,
2012
mhm,
Alpine.
mhm.
And did we do what else did we do that run? Or was
See,
it
you
just
guys did a big run in 12,
yeah.
and
Oh, you sent me your stats. Let me just look at them. I'll see what
so
that 12 is.
I didn't do anything else in 12.
Oh, okay. I was gonna piggyback
You'd
off
have
of
to look
yours,
at yourself.
but I can still click on this. So it was Alpine, the previous show. Oh yeah, it was Deer Creek and then Blossom. Yeah, so we did Blossom, Deer Creek, and then Alpine. So did you just fly in to meet us?
No, so I was in Chicago. It was a
Oh,
summer break, and so a mutual friend of ours, Hunter, him and I were in architecture school together at University of Oklahoma, and he knew he had gotten to know me, and we were kind of friends, and we weren't really hanging out a lot, but he called me and he said, "Hey, I know that you like live music, and we're traveling to see Phish. You should come and join us." And he wanted me to come to Deer Creek. I mean, I'm glad I didn't because I think you guys got rained on like a mother
man.
out there.
Yeah, it was like a war zone, man. Like it was just demolished. Like not just rained, it was like a storm. It was gnarly.
So I agreed to go to Alpine, and that was the first Phish show that I went to.
So Alpine 2012 was the first time. What do
And
you
I have to
remember
say,
about this show?
I recently got the poster from that show. It's this one with the tree on it behind me.
That's the poster?
That's the poster from that show.
Very cool. And you recently got it framed?
I recently got it. I got it from somebody off the internet. And
Oh,
I,
so you didn't get it there. You just
no, I got it, within the past year or so.
very cool. I've been meaning to try and find one for my first shows, but what I did find was it's a group on Facebook. I think it's called like PTBM Trade Group or something like that. Um, and I found because like my first shows were Miami '09, and it was 4 nights, and the tickets are like
The
artwork.
I think
And
I've seen them either on, when you were in college. I think either you or Jackson had them on their bulletin board or
I
something.
think yeah, that sounds about right. But I had the last 3 nights, and it had the artwork, but the first night was like a Ticketmaster ticket, and so I'm like, damn. And so I put like a bolo out on that Facebook group, and the dude was like, "Hey, I got one." He's like, "I'll send it to you for like $20." I was like, "Dope!" So I'm gonna get those framed at some point. Um, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that, but Alpine Valley 2012. So let's back up. You had heard of Phish before Alpine Valley 2012. So when and where did you discover slash fall in love with Phish?
I mean, I knew about Phish. I went to high school in the '90s, in the late '90s, so like I knew about Phish, but
Mm-hmm.
Phish was always like a hippie thing. It was those freaking hippies. They could whatever.
So what are you listening to at that time frame
I
then?
mean, I grew up on classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink
Right.
Floyd, AC/DC, but I never really got into Grateful Dead or Phish.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, all classic rock. I mean, that's what my record collection consists of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I went to I'd been going to a lot of festivals prior to seeing Phish. I lived in Southern California, so we went to Coachella Festival for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Saw a lot of great rock bands there. Went to Lollapalooza in Chicago. Saw a lot of great rock bands there. Some of the more contemporary bands that I'd really liked to see: My Morning Jacket,
Oh yeah.
Radiohead. Um, were some of the bands like, oh yeah, if they come to town, those who were seeing. Uh, my friends and I went and saw Tool a lot,
Love Tool.
and I think Rage Against the Machines made a comeback when I was still living in California, and so we saw them.
Oh, that's cool. Dude, I
So
would love to see
rock and
Rage.
roll.
Yeah. Yeah. Some heavy, some classic. And so you like in the 90s, like you hear Phish, you hear Grateful Dead, but you kind of don't really pay attention. When did you really dive in and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot?
It wasn't until after I went to my first Phish show. I mean, when I was invited, I'm still like,
Oh, so
this
you're
is.
still cold going in.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, nothing.
I love that. So what do you remember about that first show?
I remember immediately saying to myself, "This is not hippie music. This is rock and roll." And it just, I had a different outlook on it because I thought it was, like Scarlet Begonias and yeah, and hula hoops and.
I mean, that still exists in the scene, but musically, it
But
doesn't really match up.
that's kind of the stereotype that I had in my mind, and
Right.
heavy drug use and degenerates and
Well, those last two things are kind of
yeah, to each their own.
right. So, you did send your stats. I'm curious.
So it was the first show that I went to. I did not know that there was not going to be an opener. So I'm like, who's the opener? You're just like, no, 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 it's just Fish.
Yeah.
You finished their first set, and you guys are like, no, 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 they're going to play another one.
Like what? What time
It's
is
like,
it?
what, really? And then there was glow sticks being thrown. Like, what's the deal with that? And then they I think they played a couple of Led Zeppelin songs that run, and I
Let me
just said,
see.
Sign me up for more."
So yeah, they played. Oh, they played "Let It Loose," not a Zeppelin song, but they played Quinn the Eskimo. Oh yeah, no, they did. They encored with "Good Times, Bad Times."
Right,
That
right. That was the end of my first show, and I'm like, I'm coming back tomorrow.
you're like, okay, this is. And then did they cover anything else on night
Look,
two?
look,
Uh,
night two was, I think
Frankenstein. They did that.
it was a No Quarter and a Reba. I know
Oh
Reba's
yeah,
not a cover, but
right. Yeah,
you
no
hear Reba,
quarter.
and you're like, I got to come back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So set two, they hit cross-eyed and painless, and then no quarter. And dude, now that I'm talking about this and looking at it, I remember that no quarter.
But it crosses over back into classic rock, what I
Right.
was listening to, and I'm like, yeah, yep, yep, yep. It checks all the boxes.
So that's a perfect first run for you to go to like sell you on it. So
Oh yeah.
after those first two shows, do you immediately start like diving in, or were you kind of just like, oh, that's cool, and then
Well,
was it
it
a
was I
slow?
downloaded those, because it was a download code, and I
Mm-hmm.
just listened to the heck out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. I think it was still kind of a slow burn through. After the summer, I was still kind of listening to those shows, and I hadn't really looked outside of that. Um, and then we did Chicago in 13,
Mm-hmm.
and then I listened to those shows, and then we did Dick's in 13, um, and then I did more of a dive at that time.
I like that and that just goes to
I mean, it
show
was a
like,
year and a half before I was like, I went down the rabbit hole.
yeah, It sometimes, and it's funny because you talk to different people, and some people are like, "Oh my god, it was immediate," and I was just like jumping face first into the deep end, and then others, it's like kind of stepping in, um, and
Well, it
that's
was like folded it in with everything else I was listening to, and so it was like, you know, I like to shuffle albums, not songs, and so like I would just have a lot on whatever device I'm listening to, and it would just come through, and it would, it was good, and I found myself wanting more.
yeah, and that's what's for the lack of a better term, that's what's like tricky about Phish is once that seed is planted and like you start seeing like, oh, sure, yeah, I saw them play Reba at Alpine Valley, but this recording that I just heard of Reba sounds a lot different. So what's up with that? And then that
So
kind of
one of the first that I can remember of the non-shows that I went to was Colorado '88. Is that what it
oh
is?
wow, going way back.
Way back. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, let's start at the beginning. And
Hmm.
like hearing, those are the songs in their embryonic, like they're there,
Yeah.
but then it's like, and then they're fully fleshed out now, but then hearing the differences as I'm listening to different eras in between and kind of like, well, why is it different? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
What's happening here? I didn't know what type one, type two meant. Like, I didn't even know what that was.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot. And I can see why it would be overwhelming to try and like sell someone on Fish because there's so many things that, you know, I was going to say you have to learn, but that if you want to really deep dive, like learning, type one, type two, the different eras, the different gear that they've had throughout the years, the different struggles, that what makes each year or each era or each show really, a special
Mhm.
thing to like where it's like, oh, I get it, and that's interesting because I don't remember so much of those shows that we did together. I don't remember those being like, oh, hey, Pete's new to this. I just remember you being there, and I just remember being like, oh, we're into this together.
So we went to. I was telling my wife this yesterday because we were talking because before we were talking about me coming on here,
Hmm.
and I said, up until about when you had moved to Portland, you and of the shows I went to, you were there most of the time, like
For
of my
sure.
friends, because we went to Chicago and we went
Hmm.
to Kansas City, and we went to different places, and you were there, and it was either you or Gunner on one side of me, and be like, "What song is this? What's and I'd always ask, "What's going on?"
Uh-huh. But see, I don't so much remember that part of you asking what was going on. I just remember like you being there. I guess it didn't register at the time like, oh, this is like Pete's third show or you know what I mean? But that's cool though, because we
I think you were
all
just like, "Oh yeah, he's on the train for the ride."
yeah. One of my buddies is standing next to me at Fish. Let's
So,
go.
but, you turned me on to a few things. Then, there was that house that you guys lived on right by the football stadium, and I
Y
stayed in that back room for a couple of months when I
Yeah.
got my job here because I was in Chicago, and then I got a job here.
Mhm.
I moved here, so we went to Dick's
Mhm.
13. 2 days after that, I was in Oklahoma, interviewed for a job, got that job, moved back down to Oklahoma, stayed with you and those fools. And
That
where
was
were
a
they?
whole house of tomfoolery, dude. That house was
And we stayed together, and so you'd be like, "You've never seen Bittersweet Motel? Okay, we need to sit here and watch this. You don't know what Fish.in is? Okay, let me show you." And so
yeah.
like you showed me a bunch of stuff, and you're like, kind of lead a horse to water type deal. It's like, okay, I'll pick it up from here.
Sure, yeah. And that makes sense because right at that time, that's whenever I was doing the Fish radio show too
Mhm.
in college. And so, that was those years from like '09 to 14, I guess, were whenever I was just like consume, 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 dates, memorize, like everything. And so yeah, I'm sure anyone that would listen to me, be like, check
We
this out.
spent time. We spent a lot of time doing that and doing your Portlandia videos.
Dude, I'm so sad because I remember that. And I pulled out my hard drive from college because I was going to show my girlfriend
No,
all this like
come on.
video work that I've done. And I cannot get my hard drive to come on. I think it's dead, which I mean, it should be. It's almost, 10 years old at this point. But I
I
was,
don't have I don't have a copy of those, but
gosh. But
they
yeah, we
were.
were,
I don't know if you would laugh out loud or not now, but
I would
I
probably
enjoyed
cringe.
making them.
Yeah. So I was doing the media track in college, and so I was doing everything, video to radio to all the stuff that you start a career with to where you don't want to get paid very good. That's all the stuff that I was doing, but it's fun. Um, so now, fast forward to present day, to us sitting here right now. You've dove in. You've seen multiple shows. You see more shows than I have at this point. What
So, I've done Halloween, I've done New Year's Eve, I've done
festivals?
Magnaball and Curveball. Baker's dozen.
Yeah, you've hit you as far like the imaginary, checklist. You've checked off a lot of those. I've never been to MSG. I've never been to a festival. Um, never been to or some other
We did
iconic.
the gorge together. That was a
We
lot of
did
fun.
the gorge. That was insane. I forget
That
just
menu is just vast.
yeah.
I don't know how
It
to explain it.
coming over that hill for the first time. And I love that we all got to experience that together because it was not like someone's like, oh, just wait till we peek over the hill,
It's
and
like
we were
that
all just
cloud
like,
of dust, and then like
heaven. Yeah. Forget the shows at that point. It's just like, what is
I don't think
this?
the shows weren't that great either, but we definitely had a good time.
It was fun. Yeah. But fast forwarding to today, after all of the Phish consumption that you've done, do you have a favorite year of Phish that you find yourself going back to whenever you're just listening?
I listen I listen to whatever's the most recent. So I have I download stuff on my work computer. No, I don't. I don't listen to Phish at work. uh, and so I've got everything from the most recent tour, but the ones that I keep on there for good is Magnaball and Baker's Dozen. Um, those are the ones that always stay.
That
Uh,
you just keep
and
stay in
and
rotation.
an island tour.
Oh yeah, Island Tour, man. God,
It
that
would be those kind of those three are the big ones.
gotcha. Did you get the most recent? Why can I not think of this word? The most recent vinyl that came out with the
The
Tweezer
Mhm,
Caspian.
mhm.
You did? Yeah. I was talking with Scotty on the last
Yeah.
episode, and his was en route. It's got like a funky design on it, doesn't it?
So let's see. This one's number 3.
Oh yeah. Have you spun it yet?
Oh yeah.
Very, and I'm curious about
It's
that. Is
supposed
it
to
all?
be the Ferris wheel.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And is it so? I've been curious about this since it's on vinyl. Is like, do you have to flip the record like mid jam, or is it
So
all on one
it's like
side?
at the seg in between the tweezer and the Caspian.
And you have to flip it?
Yeah.
Oh my god. See, dude, that feels
Now,
like
here's what it does. I believe I've only listened to it once. The way that they did it on the Baker's Dozen vinyl, because I've got that also, is that it kind of they play like maybe 30 seconds in the seg, and then when you flip it, they go back, and so it's like it goes tracks back and then through the seg. So
okay,
it's not
cool.
just an abrupt stop. It sounds unnatural and it sounds shitty. But if you like vinyl, And if you're there listening to it, like you just gonna walk over and flip it and like turn the volume up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that where like I was curious about that because sometimes or often I will just listen to Fish on YouTube, like on my TV. I'll
mhm,
like find a jam and turn it on, and I don't pay for YouTube Premium or whatever it's called. And it'll be like right in the middle of a jam. It'll be like join Spectrum today. Like I'm like, God dang,
yeah, yeah.
you had
Or
to
like
pick this moment.
on Spotify on the Island Tour Roses, it like cuts from Roses to Jam, and sometimes it's just like, what happened to the rest of it?
Yeah, it's I know exactly what you're talking about. We gotta figure out who's we gotta make these segues a little bit more clean, you know?
So, I mean, I've got, uh, I have almost all Phish that's on vinyl. I don't have Clifford Ball, and I don't have Farmhouse, and I don't have two sound checks. But besides that, I got everything else. So
Nice.
MSG 95 sounds great on vinyl.
Oh my
The
god.
Baker's dozen, it's like 13 tracks. Sounds great on vinyl. Slip Stitch and Pass, it sounds great on like yes, there are times where I'll just put it on my phone and I'll just plug that in and let it play because New Year's 95 is like 6 disc. That's 12 sides. Like,
A lot of
that's a I'm cleaning the house, I'm vacuuming, I'm doing laundry. It's Saturday on a snowy or rainy day,
right,
and we're just doing chores all day. Like,
right. Yeah,
and the side ends and me or my wife walks over and flips it and we keep on.
it's part of the process.
Mhm.
Part of the process.
I mean, I do the same with I mean, I've got a bunch of Grateful Dead on vinyl also, and so, it's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I was just yeah, like I was saying, I was just curious about the, like, where it was in the jam. Like, was it like it's like peak and it's like
No, it's on a down. It's
good,
always on a down, and
good.
I can't don't rely on me for that overlap, but that's how they've done it on some other ones, so I have to go back and listen to it again.
I like that though, because it's like, hey, you had to flip. Let's go back a little bit. Arr, arr,
Yeah,
arr.
yeah, because then you're like, "Oh, wait, like, how did that seg start again?"
Right, exactly. And so you mentioned Magna Ball, you mentioned Island Tour, Baker's Dozen. So I'm sure we're gonna get some jams from those. But do you have a favorite jam of all time?
So, I'm gonna tell you about the jams that I was present for
Okay.
that really took me. Um, one of them was New Year's Eve between 15 and 16. And so this is coming off of Fare Thee Well, coming off of Magna Ball. That New Year's Eve, 4 night run was great. The Tweezer on the last night on January 2nd is to me is a great jam. There's a lot of Page and Trey back and forth. I remember just we were on the floor, and I remember just staring at Trey and you can just see them talking to each other through the music.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah.
It's one of those, it's like it really is. It's like a sixth sense that they've developed over,
Mhm.
over 30 plus years of playing together.
I think in kind of this, the second half of that, there's a lot of you'll hear that Page and Trey back and forth, and it's to me that's great. And the other one that really comes to my mind is in 2016 Halloween. Now, 2016, some people see it as kind of a bummer year, coming off of 15. 15 was great. And then 16, there was like, I think that was the year Big Boat came out, and it just was kind of meh.
Yeah.
Um, but Halloween tour started really picking up, and the Piper on the second night, I think it was the second night, was a Piper that made me like Piper. It was peak after peak after peak. And some people like that, some people don't. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't like it. But
It's a
it was,
mood thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But place and time for me, it made me like that song a lot. and those are ones that I go back to in kind of a uh, if I just want something that's going to go for 20 minutes and I'm going to, nod my head to it and be able to do whatever, like those are right at the top.
Know every note.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they're not a top 10 or anything, but those are ones that I was there for that um, I really enjoyed what was going on musically and really enjoyed, really drew me in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, and so before I ask this question, um, whenever you met your wife, was she into Phish? Is
So, like most Phish spouses, she had heard of Phish, but had never seen them before.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
So
she had, heard albums. She probably had a live one and, Farmhouse, familiar with uh, what would be the most popular tracks.
sure. So she wasn't showing you her pin collection and ticket stubs or anything.
No.
So you've probably been through this before then because, I have too. What show or song would you play for someone who you were trying to lure into the Phish world?
I mean, I think one of the first songs to play for somebody's farmhouse. It's an easy break-in song. It doesn't get too rocky. It doesn't get too rock and roll. It doesn't get too mellow. It doesn't get off the rails. But then I go to Simple and Tweezer would be the next two.
So all studio cuts.
I think you start with studio. Especially if it's somebody that's never heard it before. I mean, you play Tweezer and then you kind of say, well, this is studio, but there's this middle part where they just, take it wherever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes for no pun intended, it becomes a way, to seg into like, type one and type two and what's a composed song and what's a jam vehicle.
Right. Yeah. And I went through that same process with Umphreys because I remember my first Umphreys show. I was like, kind of just went in cold. Didn't
Was
know
I
any.
there with you? No, 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 no. I wasn't there with you.
No. This was like in like Missouri or Kansas
I've
or
heard stories about that.
yeah.
It
And
was
I
New
didn't.
Year's, right?
No. It wasn't New
Oh,
Year's.
it
It
was
was
New
just
Year's.
like it was summer because it
Oh
was an
no, I
outdoor.
was there.
Were you?
Yes, that was at that outdoor theater, the Crossroads Theater or something.
That sounds right. And it was like,
Did you stay at a casino?
I want to say there was a casino type thing there. Um, but I just remember being like, and Brian Payne was there. I remember Maggie was there. Um, don't really remember much of that show, but one of the things that I do remember is being like, I don't know what song this is. Are they still playing the same song? So that kind of same, correlation of like,
Right.
I don't know what I'm hearing. So then I went back and I was like, okay, studio.
But
So I
like
listened to
you
studio.
knew that there was jams and composed and that songs can change theme in the middle of them, but you just didn't know how to place it because you didn't know you came in cold.
Yeah, I had no reference point. And
Mhm.
fast forward to today, that's kind of where I'm at with Goose.
I have
I
not gone on that bus ride yet.
Dude, I have not either, other than, like I said, mentioned YouTube earlier, getting on YouTube and, they just did a thing at Red Rocks and they had one of their jams, or maybe it was the whole show. I can't remember. And I clicked it on and was like listening and kind of, but don't know the lyrics, don't know, okay, this section's composed, this section's jammed, kind of. So I'm going to have to go back and see. I like
So,
to learn the song so I have a reference point, and so I can be like, "Oh
well,
yeah, no, they're jamming right now,"
right, and a lot of people are saying good things about them. They're
Mhm.
touring. They're coming to Oklahoma City. I
Oh,
don't
are
have
they?
tickets, but I'd like to go. Yeah,
When are they gonna be there?
I'd have to look at the days. I think in November.
Criterion?
Yeah,
Figured. Well, that'll be cool. That'll
it
be
might be at
fun.
the Tower. I think it's Criterion though.
Hmm.
Um, But they're doing the tour coming up with Trey. Did you hear about that one?
I saw that,
Well,
and
it's Goose for one set, Trey Band for one set, and then a combined set.
it's gonna be interesting.
I
And
mean, they're not coming here, but if they were, I'd buy a ticket.
right, yeah, I looked at because I saw the announcement, like, with the peanut butter and the chocolate, and then
Mhm.
also saw
Mhm.
Reese's, like, their account, they tweeted about it, and they were
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, like, their actual account, and they were like, "We're not gonna say if we like chocolate better or peanut better, but we love this collab. Are you gonna let us split open and melt, or should we step into the freezer?" So, like, someone that was running that account, like, was privy
I
to
gotta
what was
find
going
that.
on.
That's good. That's
Yeah, it
good.
was pretty good. But I looked up the tour dates because I was like, "Man, if they're gonna be in Michigan, that's worth." I mean, talk about, like, jumping into the deep end with Goose, you
No,
know.
I mean, like, that's what I did with Phish. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I'll listen to some of them beforehand. Let's see. When are they gonna be here? I think it's, like, November
but
tour.
from what I listened to, and I can't obviously name the song, but it's on YouTube and it's, from their recent Red Rocks thing. The opening riff to the song,
Mhm.
I was like, "Dude, this riff is pretty dope." And then, like, they went through the jam and then came back into the riff, and I was like, "Don't know what this song is, but I dig it," you know? But yeah, we got a whole new world. I feel, and I've heard
There's
this
October 14th here.
November 14th.
October
Oh, October.
at the
Alright.
Criterion, which I don't know, you haven't seen a show there before, have you?
I have not.
I mean,
Shitty
it could
sound.
be a lot cooler than it is.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I believe you.
From a sound engineering perspective, the venue is cool.
But the
They
sound is
need
not.
they need better chairs for sure. Criterion, if you're listening, you need better chairs. But the sound in there is not the best.
Gotcha. Echoey or
Yeah,
what?
it's
Yeah.
it's bad.
Okay.
It's in some locations it's indistinguishable what's going on stage.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Hey, Criterion, get it together, man. Get some good bands in there. Um, but
They
yeah,
got they got good artists coming through there, so
yeah, I've been impressed with, because I still follow a lot of Oklahoma-based stuff, on
mhm,
Instagram and social
mhm.
media, and I'll see every once in a while, so and so at the Criterion, so and so. But yeah, I've never seen a show there. But you're not selling it very well for them.
For me, it's a home venue,
Hmm.
so, we've got a baby, it's hard for me to be able to travel to see music now. So if I'm able to get out one night, I mean, you know, it's hometown show.
Yeah,
There's a lot of bands that don't come close to Oklahoma City, and we've got other venues that are cool venues that are smaller and larger than Criterion. So, I'd like to see more bands come through here. I think that we could have the fans to support them.
there is a market there. I mean,
Oh, for
Oklahoma,
sure.
you wouldn't think that. I mean, especially if you've never been to Oklahoma,
Mhm.
you see it on the map and you think whatever you think of it. But there's fans there, not just of Phish, but just live music fans. I mean,
Right.
yeah, get some better options out there. Um, I always like to sprinkle in a little bit of controversy because you listen to a lot of podcasts or whatever, and it's all just loving on the band, which it should be, but every good story has conflict. So I like to ask the question, what Fish song would you be okay with never hearing again or never having them play it again?
I mean, uh, there was a point when I actually cared.
Me too, buddy.
But if you're gonna pull one song, it's got to be Petrichor. That song fucking sucks.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
any other song off of that album, that's fine, but I mean, it's like what, 12, 15 minutes of sleigh bells and, you
It's
know,
a there's a lot going on, and I remember the first time that I had heard that, it reminded me of and don't get me wrong, I love Frank Zappa, but it reminded me of, like, a Zappa composition of just, like, trying to maybe be weird for the sake of being weird, or,
I
if
thought,
that makes any sense.
I thought, I didn't think he was trying to be weird. I thought that he was trying to be theatrical
That's a better word, yeah.
in a rock and roll show. And it just, it, they did a New Year's Eve with it and they had theater with it. And I thought that's how you perform that piece, not at Dick's second song, second set.
Right. Right. I'm with you. I'm not a I'm not a huge fan of that song, but also I haven't dove into it a lot. I've listened to maybe
I've
a
had it.
handful
I
and
mean, let's see how many times I've had it on my.
oh, on
How
your
many times I've
stats.
seen it? Yeah, we'll find it in a second. So
It's like
I
it's like
want to ask you that
87.
question though. What?
I said your stats it says 87 times. Probably haven't even played it 87 times.
Now, I know that I've been next to you at times when you're like, "Man, I hate this song," and you walk away.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
there's
what song do you hate right now, or what song would you be okay if they did not play this weekend when we're at Dick's?
oh man, there's so many. And it's changed for me over time. I've brought up a lot on this podcast. I brought up the song Joy, which at a certain time in my life, I would like roll my eyes and be like, oh my God, like what the fuck? We're in the second set, bro. Like open with this and get it out of the way. But after, and as I've gotten a little bit older, and after like hearing like the origin of Joy and what that song means to Trey, um dude, you can put that song anywhere you want and I will stop what I'm doing and I will connect with you, on this because, as we get older, it's inevitable we're going to lose people in life that we love, and knowing that that's where that came from one of my, if not my favorite musician in the
Mhm,
world, it's like, yeah, I'll stop what I'm doing and I'm going to connect with you on this.
mhm.
So that's not on my list anymore. But things like, let me see if I can find a controversial one.
So, let's see, the last time we were there, I'll call you out,
Yeah, call
uh,
me out.
in the encore, it might have been the last night they played, "A Life Beyond a Dream," and you almost lost it. This Disney bullshit.
I believe you.
But
Yeah.
after what you just said about joy, do you
hmm
feel differently about Life Beyond a Dream today?
Um, haven't given it as much thought, to be honest. It's not a song I seek out. I'm sure I would be more opinionated if I were to get it to close a set or something. Um, but the top ones that come to my mind are, you mentioned Petrichor. I'm gonna have to say Time Turns Elastic, um, The Line, um, really, you throw a dartboard or throw a dart at any song off of Big Boat or Joy, the album. Um, I'm okay with not
Like,
hearing
not
that.
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there's a handful to where I'm like, "Mm," but at the same time, I've said this too, like, who am I to dictate what the band plays? But it's just kind of a fun answer or a fun question to ask to see, where people are at with like the eye roll songs or the piss break songs.
Right. And if Trey wants to play Ocelot, third song in the first set, like, cool. Like, I know where that came from too. Like,
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you're playing the line, like, yeah, I'm going to the bathroom.
Yeah. I'm gonna go get in the line that's forming very fast.
Uh,
um,
let's see, the year that I saw the most shows, I saw a lot of Character Zero,
mm,
encore. And I was just like, at that time, I was like, I hear another character zero, and they don't jam it or anything, but like
Right.
it's still good rock and roll. So
Yeah.
like it doesn't bother me, but of course we're gonna get it as a closer, next weekend, one
Right.
night.
Yeah. It will be played for sure,
Yeah.
unless someone from the band sees this. On the flip side of that, what song do you love that you haven't seen yet that you're chasing?
So I wouldn't say love, but I would say that the biggest song or songs that I'm chasing is Colonel Forbin and Mockingbird. Out of just the classics, out of everything that they played. That's what I have not seen.
And another one,
There's some.
like the checklist, like
Mhm,
the
mhm.
anything from Game Hinge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the last of it, really.
Yeah. Oh, so
There's
you've
some
seen pretty much everything else off of that, right?
pretty much everything
Yeah.
else off the Game Hinge that they still play. You know,
And do you think that they will do a skit this year at Dick's?
um, I don't know about a skit like a
Or a
gag.
gag? Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Are you saying because it's a four nighter and we've all and in all four nighters there is a gag?
In all four nighters? Oh,
Yes.
okay. I see what you're saying now. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Halloween and New Year's are the only 4-night runs, and there's
Right.
always something.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, expect the unexpected,
Yeah.
but I don't. I'm not anticipating it because I don't want to let myself down.
Right. Yeah. It's best to go in with an open mind.
Right.
But like they've done stuff like that first year they did the S show, and then they did like the fuck your face.
So I think we'd get something closer to the thank you in the
Hmm.
last show than like a show long. But I mean, they could try to do a 4-night spelling bee. Who knows?
Just like,
Who
okay, you
knows?
got to take the first letter from the first song in the second set of night one, add that to people are going to be going crazy trying to figure out if anything's going on.
Will you add the time change to the third letter?
Exactly. Um, and I liked, we have a lot of these. I like to wrap these up with favorite memories from tour. Just from any tour, really, any event, seeing the band on the way to the show, at the show. We've got a pretty funny one at my expense that only you and I experienced one year in Chicago.
We've
Uh,
got a few. We've got a few.
yeah,
Uh,
we do. So
you
anything
know,
that you're open to sharing, obviously.
one of my one of my favorite trips that I did was Baker's Dozen.
Oh,
You weren't there, but
I was not.
we had a really good time. We were there for the last weekend. We stayed at a place that was just blocks from Madison Square Garden. Uh, it was above a pizza place that was open 24 hours.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
so like as far as like for a weekend, like that was there was I think you were the only friend that wasn't there that
I
weekend.
wasn't there, man.
Everybody
Didn't
else was.
didn't
Even
have
though
the
Hunter came
funds,
in
man.
late.
And how
Um,
many did you guys do the whole thing, or did
no,
you
no,
just
no. We
do?
did the last 3
Oh,
nights.
gotcha. And
Um,
what 3 nights were those? Was one of those the jam-filled night or
no, it was I think lemon, Boston cream, and I'd have to look and see what the other one was.
Gotcha. Did you guys get the actual donut or no?
No,
No.
no. And that was our friend Gunnar he was injured that year and he had a knee scooter, and so he had like him and another one of our friends had like some wheelchair suite up in the rafters or
Uh-huh.
something they were looking down from.
And he had
Uh,
a tough time getting home from that trip.
Yeah, he did. He'll tell that story next time he's on here. But it started with you. I don't know what Chicago one you're referring to. We went to 2 tours, 2 runs in Chicago, um, and I'm sure we ran into all sorts of shenanigans there. The one that I remember with you was on the way to Kansas City.
I remember that trip. I don't remember a shenanigan though. What was it?
It wasn't really a shenanigan. We were going to meet old Gunner, and your 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 truck
Oh,
blew a flat on the way. Like we weren't even a few miles from Oklahoma City, and we were meeting our other friend, and we were gonna and then drive up.
yeah,
Your truck blows a flat, and then you proceed to pull over on the left side of the highway.
at the wrong side. I was just so flustered, man. That tire damn near popped off.
Oh yeah, and this is Clay right out of college, so he's fully educated and everything.
And I do remember after that happened, Gunner came and picked us up, and I literally just left my truck on the side of the road.
No, you didn't. You
Did I
didn't have
not?
you didn't have a jack in your car, so we had to wave down a state trooper.
Oh, you
And the
are
state
right.
trooper came and he had like a truck jack. And
Yeah.
you were pulled over on the left side, and the trooper's like, no, 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 you're gonna do this. I'm gonna stand here and like try to wave traffic
You're
off.
right. You're right.
And he made you change the tire, and you'd have to tell me if it was on the traffic side or not.
I don't remember. But yeah, you are right because Gunner showed up while the cop was there, right?
And then like we
Yeah.
left the truck in like a Walmart parking lot or
I
something.
think we took it back to your apartment.
No, we left it at Walmart.
Did we?
I'm pretty sure we did.
Because I remember after that run, and this was because this wasn't just like a normal blowout. This truck was like on its last leg. Like I'm pretty sure
That
like my
red truck.
axle,
I mean, it was you.
it had been run into the ground. And then after I got back with that spare tire that I had on my way back from Oklahoma City to either Norman or Paul's Valley or wherever I was staying, that tire blew out. And so I was like, okay, there's like a bit, this tires aren't just popping like this. There's a bigger issue at hand
It
here.
didn't last much longer.
Yeah, no, we had to get that thing out of there. And then we had the one in Chicago I was referring to is you and I had broken off from the group in the show because we wanted to, because we've never been, you know, so we'd never been like up front people. We've always kind of hung out in the back, you know. And so Pete and I were like, "Hey, let's go check it out up front. You know, let's do
And
the
we got
second set."
snubbed down, I think.
Yeah. And we got like we made it a mission to get like as close as we could. And so we're up there and this is deep in the second set. So there's been party favors passed around and it's summer. I've got my shirt off because
This was Sunday night. It rained, and they there was a like a 1 or hour and a half break between the first and the second set.
right.
It was just
Yes.
pouring rain.
And so this was that night because I had my shirt off. It's humid after the rain. And you know, we're probably 10:30 p.m. So full day's worth of having fun. And we're up there and I remember Run Like an Antelope is playing. And it's
We're
like
close to the stage. We're 10 or 12 people back. We're close.
and it's peaking. Like the song is peaking and I look over to this guy because we're up close, so we're kind of I think you're probably in front of me a little bit or like vice versa.
It
And I
sounds
look over to this guy that's next to me and he's just smiling like a devious smile and I was like, what the fuck? And so about 3 minutes later I like start getting like super anxious and like super overwhelmed and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And I like turn around and I'm like, we gotta go. I was like, somebody put something on my back. I was convinced that someone had dosed me. And I was like freaking out. And I like take off, like trying to
you're
basically
like, dude,
run.
we gotta go. And I'm like, no, we're not leaving. Like let's just go to the back. Like we're gonna be okay.
Yeah. And we get back and I like once we got out of like the crowded, like, you know, way up front, you know, you were like calming me down and I was like, okay, like I'm okay.
I'm like,
But
nobody's gonna waste their drugs on you.
I was like, Pete, look at, I was like, is there anything on my back? Because it was so sudden. I was like, oh my God, what happened? And yeah, so that was the time that I thought that I got dosed and didn't. It was just,
You did. You were
no,
okay.
I was okay. Yeah. I was just overwhelmed. There was
Just overwhelmed.
yeah. Phish overwhelmed me. But yeah, that was a pretty good one. I'm trying to think of any other
I
ones.
mean, we've had some fun. We've gone to fish in a lot of places. We've talked about Chicago. We were at the Gorge together.
Yep.
We've done Dick's quite a few times. I don't think we've seen any East Coast shows together.
We have not. Nope. The only East Coast I've done for Phish is Miami.
Mhm.
Or if you want to call Michigan East Coast, I guess it kind of is. But
We've done camping at Dick's together and all
those
sorts
were
of
the days, man.
shenanigans. Oh, I can't do that anymore.
Me neither.
No.
Me neither. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Pete. I wanted to
I'm
get you
looking
on.
forward to seeing you here
Yeah.
in just a week or so.
Yeah,
Less than
less
a
than a
week.
week. Yeah. I'm excited to do a 4-night run. I don't know how this is going to pan out. With our hotel situation, I don't know how many beds there are. I don't know how many rooms there are, but we're going to make it work.
It's going to work.
It's going to work. Yes, it is.
I took care of it. It's
You
gonna
did.
work.
You did. And I love, like, in our group text, like every year, we'll go through like, okay, so and so's getting tickets for this. So I'm gonna get all the Fridays, you get all this, you do that. And then it gets closer and closer to time. We start talking about like Airbnb options and everything. And I think last year Toller was the one that locked it down. The year before that, I don't remember.
It
And
was
just like,
I had done it probably prior.
yeah, probably. Cause you're, I would say, one of the more responsible ones of the group, especially when it comes to things Phish. But every year I'm just always kind of like, I'm like, who's gonna get it this year? Nobody call me out. So thank you for securing that.
So you're doing it next year.
Oh, I didn't know if you were talking to. Is there someone else back there? Is that back there? We'll see. We'll see what the situation's like. But I'm super excited to see you. Super excited to see everyone else, and getting ready to do some Phish together. And this will be up tomorrow. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time. I know you
My
got the little
pleasure.
one in there. I'll let you get back to the family.
So my handle at the bottom is my .net handle. If anybody wants to
Oh,
follow me, if you want to check out my stats, it is not a Twitter handle.
it is not a Twitter handle. The Bear, if you're just listening and you want to find Pete on .net,
And
The
I'll tell you
Bear.
that we support Mockingbird, Water Wheel, and Oklahoma Humane Society.
I love that. Involved.
And the new one my wife was telling me about, I think, Roe Foundation, supporting women's rights in Oklahoma.
Another great one. Look at you. I'm so proud of you.
We do what we can.
So proud of you, Pete. All right, man. Thank you. Hang out. I'm going to end the podcast, but hang out and we'll talk some logistics.
All right.
Bye, everybody.